Paul cannot make it.
Paul and Tony. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the notice requirements have been satisfied. Meeting dates for the year confirmed at the annual meeting are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the Municipal Center and published in the record within the first 10 days of the new year. For those in the audience, this is a combined meeting. We have a work session, as we do the third meeting of each month, or the last meeting of each month. And then we go into the big room for a public meeting. And we have guests tonight. Because they're third graders and rather young, I asked Lisette to put them first on the agenda so they could come in and present us with a petition. And more than that, I can't answer you. Describe, so I'll go get them.
Whoa. This is a secret petition that comes up.
No, it's something called
There's been an incredible amount of lobbying done. Serious.
It's typical, it's election
Like
season.
all
We're
over
going to
King
do the
Street.
Even the kids gotta get
we're
involved.
going to the big
No,
we're going to go into the chamber for part
Oh,
two.
look at them wearing those cute t-shirts.
Oh, the petition is going to be presented here, and then we're going to listen.
Yeah, they can't stay up that late.
We should have done it.
They gotta go home and do their homework.
2 hours.
Why don't the kids go around both ends of the table, and
You
then the
guys stay
parents...
here, you stay here, the other children can
parents
go around the
can-
table.
The
Everybody
parents
else
can
just
come in and witness.
Boys and girls, go
Why
around
don't
the
you follow
table
me?
like Mayor Rustin, just follow. Nope, Harry, go ahead.
Come on, everybody follow me, and the rest of the group go this way.
They're gonna speak, so they're gonna stay right here.
Okay.
Anybody coming this side?
They're coming, I'm gonna do that, Match, I can just get.
Oh, no, I wanna sit up here, be part of the council, learn how it is.
We have plenty of room, and the parents can stand behind them.
You wanna be a councilman? Oh, okay, well, the rejection.
Okay, if I remember correctly, we're gonna have somebody introduce the speaker, so who's
Well,
that going to
the
be?
front line here, they each have a brief thing, they're down to 6 minutes, so they know how they're gonna do it.
Okay, this is, by the way, this very attractive little young lady who graduated high school with me, that's why she's young, is Sharon Hess, Nurse Hess at Stillman School.
Hi,
And
everybody,
she's
thank you
the
for
sponsor
having
of the
us.
club.
Okay, go ahead, guys.
Hello, my name is Ginger Coslow. And my name is Kate Coslow. We are members of the WITS Club, World Improvement by Tenafly Students, an after-school club of 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders at Stillman Elementary School. I will be introducing Guy Persons, who will be telling you further notice on the Children's Product Safety Awareness Petition in Tenafly, New Jersey. Hello, my name is Guy Persons. We collected signatures of our fellow students to present to you, the Tenafly Mayor and Council, in order to have November declared as Children's Product and Safety Awareness Month in our town of Tenafly. WITS has previously received a proclamation issued by Governor Chris Christie in November 2015, declaring November as Children's Product and Safety Awareness Month in New Jersey.
Hi, my name is Ariel Yogan. AJR53 and then SJR40 designates November of each year as Children's Product Safety Awareness Month in New Jersey. Governor Christie signed the proclamation effective November 2015.
Hi, my name is Maya Hyman. Thank you for letting us come to your meeting and for...
Would somebody like to read what's on this petition? You don't have to read all the names, but I'm, just for the benefit of the members of the council, they have a lot of signatures here.
Wow.
A lot of potential voters, future voters. So I think we better pay attention to what they have.
Is this a request for a
Mayor Rustin,
referendum?
Joseph is gonna read it.
1,500
Joseph is
votes?
gonna read it.
Joseph?
Rowe.
Okay, if you read it so everybody can hear it.
Nice and loud. Joseph.
Hello, the WITS Club wants Children's Product Safety Awareness Month in November 2016 so that all children that live in Tenafly will have safe toys and products. The WITS Club and Stillman School have initiated these petitions for Mayor Rustin and the Tenafly Council, as you see in all the signatures that we have.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I have a question for you. Now, that petition, this proclamation is very impressive, and I think that it should hang somewhere in the month of November, okay, even though it says 2015. So my question to you is, would you like to hang it in Stillman School, where perhaps it belongs, or if you'd like, we can hang it here in Borough Hall for the month of November. It's really your choice.
Where would you like to hang it? If you want it hung on Borough Hall, raise your hand. That's our majority.
The ayes have it.
Well, so far, majority rules in the United States. So we will, we will proudly hang this. And although this is we have a public meeting, you have to give us an opportunity at the work session of November the 1st. We normally don't read proclamations at work sessions, but because we only have one public meeting in November.
No, we have two, but they're both combined meetings. It's
Oh, so November 1st is a combined meeting
Yes.
also? So on November 1st, we will prepare a proclamation, which will be similar to this one, although it'll say November 2016, and we can't declare it for the state, but we can declare it for Tenafly. I believe, if I can see a show of hands, does the council vote to do this?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay, so it's
Acclamations.
unanimous. We will follow your lead, and this is a great lesson in democracy, because when so many people speak, your elected officials listen. Okay? When it's one person, sometimes they have a difficult time having their voice heard. But when it's so many people speaking the same thing, you're going to accomplish great things. And I know the club has been in existence for quite some time, and you do lots of wonderful things. And this is a great example of how when you put your mind on something and you work together, you can get things done. And we're going to do our best to make sure that the toys and everything else that children use, products that children use, whether they're toys or car seats or anything else, are safe in Tenafly. Thank you very much.
What do we say to Mayor Reston?
Thank you.
You're very welcome. This isn't just the mayor, this is the mayor and
Mayor
council.
and council.
Because it's the council that makes all these decisions.
All right, guys.
Well, thank you very much.
It's gonna give me fun.
And,
All right.
once again, I enjoy coming to your meetings, and the next time we're invited, maybe some of the councilmen will
Oh,
come
that
as
would be
well.
great.
And I know you have at least,
Welcome you.
Dan, did you go to Stillman School? Dan graduated from Stillman School.
She didn't graduate yet.
And I know Councilman Zena is a
Yeah.
proud Stillman School parent
All
or
four of my
ex-parent.
kids went to Stillman.
So, okay, and I know Shama Hader and myself, we're Smith School
Smith
parents, but
parents.
that's okay.
That's okay. I'm sure it's
And
acceptable.
mom school.
Morm School over there. So we represent almost every one of the elementary schools. Thank you very much for
Thank
all
you
of
for
your hard
having us.
work.
Now, one question,
Mom.
does that mean we come back November 1st?
If you'd like to come back and hear the proclamation.
Stillman.
The only thing is it'll be at a public meeting, so it'll be about 8 o'clock.
That's okay, but I
We'll-
think
we'll
the
do it
children
early.
need to hear the results of their labors. What do you think? Yes? Yes,
great.
we'll see you November 1st. Thank you.
You're very
you.
welcome.
you.
Thank you for all your work in inspiring all these young people to do good things. It's very encouraging. Tenafly is headed in the right direction.
Thank you very much.
You're very
Okay,
welcome.
Ritz Club, parents, this way. Have a nice evening. Thank you for having us.
You're welcome.
Who else is doing this? Doing what?
You went to this part of the meeting. Now,
This is the best part.
now it started downhill. It's all downhill from now.
This is the best part. No, it's not.
Motion to adjourn?
Only one here.
18 years.
Alrighty. Now back to more
He's a
mundane
Peruvian
things.
Smith school.
We have a request for installation of fiber optic cable in municipal right-of-way from Cross River. Jewel, you want to kind of tell us what we're talking about here?
Essentially, we're relying on basically the representatives of Cross River to review the information that they've provided to us in the cover letter. I think the council would like a clearer idea of who are the customers. I thought it was interesting that you mentioned the fact that you view municipal government as a potential customer, and that's something I think the
And the
council
school board.
And the school.
Well, would you mind introducing yourself,
Sure.
please?
My name is Rob Sakota. I work for Cross River Fiber. Thank you very much, Council and Mr. Mayor, for giving me a chance to talk. Cross River is a small New Jersey-based company. We have 50 employees. We are principally involved in the installation of fiber optic cables, generally on utility poles in northern New Jersey From time to time, we'll go in underground conduit, but for the most part, we try to stay on the utility pole and make the easiest and simplest installations possible. Typically, we lease out the fiber optic cable or strand fiber optic cable to larger institutions who are interested in high-capacity communications between two spaces. That would include financial institutions, hospitals, municipal governments. In some cases, school districts now are often shifting away from typically a school district. In the past, we'd use the local cable company to provide service between its the school district and perhaps the Board of Ed building. Now a lot of school districts are moving into using fiber optic strands directly to avoid reliance on the cable television companies. So we have a proposal. We would like to install our cable in Tenafly. Currently we don't actually have a customer in Tenafly. Truth be told, we're actually looking to build north and go up into Rockland County, and we're going through Tenafly. But by reason of the fact that we'll be going through the town, it will give us greater ability to provide services to any potential customers in Tenafly or any of the surrounding communities who are interested in connecting either from their business, from their school, from their municipal building to other places, either within Tenafly or alternatively in other towns. A lot of businesses now, years ago, most businesses kept all their information on site, right? You had a big room in the back of your business where you might have had a server and you tried to store all your records. Mostly businesses now work off-site. They keep their information, and what you've probably heard of is they work in the cloud now. They'll keep it at some data center where it's safe in the event of a power outage or there's a natural disaster or a flood of some sort. So a lot of businesses who have a lot of customer information, patient records, other information of that type like to keep all of their information backed up in data centers, none of which are located in Tenafly, but in other places in northern New Jersey, Secaucus, Totowa, places like that. A lot of businesses keep backup records.
What was your basis for choosing Tenafly?
Like I said, currently we're actually simply looking to build north from, I think we're currently in Hackensack. We have some medical customers there, and we're building north to a data center which is in Rockland County. So we're really just building currently through Tenafly. We don't have.
No, I understand, but I mean.
Well, we're not adjacent to Hackensack. You'd have to come through TNX, perhaps?
Yes, we actually, you're one of about 7 jurisdictions we're talking to as we're building the route.
Okay.
So before I ask you any questions, I want to ask our borough attorney a couple of questions. One is, I see, according to their sample resolution, that they've got approval from the New Jersey Board of Public Utilities, I guess, to do this sort of thing, but I know talking from going back from the Arab experience, do we need to get permission from the owners of the poles, Verizon, before we allow anybody to hang things on the pole? And second of all, since they're a commercial enterprise, if we give them permission to do it, are we going to be required, or how does that? Is a second company and a third company going to at some point going to ask for the same permission?
You asked a couple different questions here, or maybe 3 questions. One, they have to get, if they're Verizon's poles, they would need to get the permission from Verizon. But there is a statute in New Jersey that whenever attachments are made to poles, municipalities' consent is required, assuming that it's not under the Federal Telecommunications Act. I believe it restricts our ability to say no. But nevertheless, there is a New Jersey statute, which we addressed in the Arab case, that anytime there's attachments to poles in municipality, the municipality's consent is required. So, tough to answer your question about if you say yes, can you say no to someone else? That depends upon the nature of the connection.
Mayor, can I ask a
So hold on, Max, you might have some
But
experience.
but Verizon's consent is required.
First of all,
but they can't say
so let's
no.
go back to the fact that the BPU has given the company a license to be able to provide. It does not obligate any of the underlying towns or boroughs that basically say they are licensed in New Jersey, and it's up to each one of the entities of the boroughs to decide if they want to participate or not. As far as public right of way, every utility pole that we have is either owned by, joined either by Verizon and PSCNG, Verizon and PSCNG, or the borough's utility who can give the permission. And it becomes a three-way type of operations if it's a Verizon or PSCNG pole, and also the utility, the borough. There are other utility poles that are not owned by Verizon, which are owned only by PSCNG, and those are going to be required the PSCNG approval and also the approval of the borough if we want to allow them. There are a few questions that are raised together with this type of operation. First question is, do we give them one utility? Do we have an obligation to give it to another utility? The answer is no. We gave, for example, permission to Cablevision to wire out the entire borough, and doesn't mean that we have the obligation to give it to somebody else. From the practical point of view, if this utility, the company, is going to, and it's a fiber-based system, will provide services only to the commercial customers, which are the most lucrative customers that a utility can get, will completely shut down Tenafly, shut out from anybody else to coming in town and provide services to residential customers, because they have cherry-picked the most lucrative units. And then it's very unattractive for another company to come and just give Shama, Mark, and me specifically to come home for $29. So there is an implication behind the legality about how do we want to protect or not the residents in town to be able to one day have a company that's going to come to provide actual services, fiber-based services in Tenafly.
Is FiOS a fiber-based service?
Yes.
Yeah, FiOS is a fiber-based service, yeah. So if we want to get them, or,
I don't know that we're ever going to get FiOS.
exactly, but if say Cablevision wants to move to fiber and stuff like that, they will have to have a base, and those are the most lucrative customers. Then they do an average, say, okay, we can get them so much money from the customer, So we're going to have to discuss it as a whole.
Right.
How do we protect our residential customers if we allow the business customer to be cherry-picked and locked out of this?
Hang on. Let me get the comments from them, and then you can respond.
My question was, I was reading this thing where it talks about the federal and state laws, and the federal law that says any entity to provide interstate or intrastate telecommunication, prohibiting that. Does that apply in this case?
Let me explain that.
Well, it does.
No, I'm sorry. We do not permit or not permit the company to provide interstate communications. The right of way and interstate communications are completely different. They can provide those communications as long as here they came in for permission to get the right of way. Usually they use this type of additional information to try to convince somehow the town that you cannot do anything against it, but it's not something that they are asking us. They are asking us to provide fiber and permission for the right-of-way. The fact that they provide interstate or intrastate services, we're not in any way against or for. It's different and distinct, and it's not part of the existing requirements that they put them together.
I'll let Bill speak.
Well, first of all, I know a little bit about Tenafly's poles from
from
past
the previous experience, for sure.
And our poles actually, believe it or not, the right of way for Verizon is pursuant to an old agreement that we have, not eminent domain, but pursuant to an old easement agreement that was done with New Jersey Bell.
Exactly.
A long time ago. Many of the towns, the poles exist by virtue of the eminent domain or the rights that are given to public utilities to put poles in the right of way. But ours dates back to an old written agreement with New Jersey Bell, and Verizon is a successor to that. It does say that anything that's put on the poles requires the borough's permission.
Exactly.
It was a private agreement, not through the normal channels of public utility placing
So
poles.
in reality,
But-
anything on the poles requires the permission both of the owner of the pole, which usually is Verizon, and the borough.
For Verizon's poles,
For
that's the
Verizon's poles,
case.
not all of them are.
Well, I think most, if not all, of the poles are.
Most of them are Verizon's poles.
Mark, did you have a question or a comment?
So my understanding of Telecommunications Act with the ILECs, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that they're granted access to poles that are owned by private entities, and we can't say no to that. I mean, that's...
My understanding was that we're not allowed to say no to a utility that is providing interstate communications.
And we don't do that. They're asking for,
Well, it applies to... So I worked in this background also with small cell technology with AT&T.
Yeah.
And so poles that are owned by private companies like whether it's PSE&G, Verizon, whoever owns it, that we're not able... The federal law says that we're not able to stop those communication processes.
the owners, Verizon cannot stop them. We're not the owners.
But right, it becomes a moot point, the Verizon poles. If they were our poles, we'd be able to stop them.
Okay, so one more thing. Verizon, under the Deregulation Act, is basically required to provide unbundled services to other carriers.
Right.
One of the unbundled services, if they apply for, is specifically access to those specific facilities. We are not part of the Telecommunication Act, and we do not fall under the requirements or unbundling of the Telecommunication Act. This was specifically for Verizon. We are a co-owner or a specific, more than, it's not a co-owner, we have a common interest in those poles, but we are not under the Telecommunication Deregulation Act. So we do not have to abide by those obligations that the telecoms have to abide by.
Right, but the telecoms own these poles.
That's their business.
Well, I have a bigger question though.
Yeah.
Why would we not want to do this if they're
Right.
coming in providing a service to different?
The question is, which I'll direct to you, is what benefit, the sense from what your presentation, I think the immediate impact of allowing you to come in and use our poles is to allow you to go through our town. If that's the case, what benefit do we have from working with you on this?
I think the benefit is, you're right, when we first come through, there is going to be no benefit in an immediate sense. But the reality is our ability to provide service has something to do with how far we are from the business. Right now, we're not in Tenafly, we're nowhere near Tenafly. Our ability to provide service to anybody in Tenafly is non-existent. Once we're in Tenafly, what generally happens is businesses are going to be either next to where we are or they'll be some distance from where we are. And at that point, we're able to propose business opportunities to them, but we can't do that until we're within some proximity of the
Okay,
business.
so, but have you looked at Tenafly at all? Are
I
you
have not.
familiar at all?
I am not. No.
All right, well, what type of business that we have in Tenafly would be a potential customer of yours?
The largest businesses that we have that are customers of ours are three types. They are financial institutions, banks, hospitals and doctors' offices, and third, carriers. That is, we're a small company, we have 15 people.
School and governments too.
School and governments, but we're a small company, we can't provide lots of services, as you mentioned, to an individual household. We don't
Yeah,
have the
residential.
ability to do that. But what we do have the ability to do is, when we put fiber on a pole, is to lease it to other carriers who then in turn use those fibers to provide a myriad services to other either businesses or in many instances potentially to customers, consumer customers, which we're not able to do, right? We're just a wholesaler of the fiber strands.
Dan had his hand up first, Mark, and then you, please.
So, just in a broad sense, you're installing a backbone line that will go up to Rockland County, which happens to pass through Tenafly, which could eventually lead to a third-party using that same backbone to potentially offer internet, TV, or whatever to a household in the future, in the far future?
In the future, I mean, I think probably the first potential customer would
Would be
likely
a
be
bigger
a school
business.
district,
Right, right.
a bank, a doctor's office. They're probably the most likely initial type of customers. But eventually, yes, I foresee that, 10 years from now, people don't know what the telecommunications potentials are.
Right.
There are people out there who are looking to provide, there's a lot of complaints in New Jersey about telephone service and about cable television service. And the reality is, if you don't have Fios here yet, you're basically stuck
We're
with probably
stuck with
Cablevision.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's
That's
your
right.
only option. There's lots of people who are looking for wireless alternatives to cable television by transmitting from, a few places within a town, except when they have that service, they have to backhaul it to someplace on a backbone, which, we would be in a position to do. Now, does that service exist today? No. But, people don't know what the possibilities are, but if there are no individual companies in a municipality who are offering fiber optic services to other customers, then your ability to have these services are going to be impeded versus other towns.
So this kind of hits home with me because I have a business in Englewood, and we use one of the current big players to get our internet service, and the service stinks. So as far as I'm concerned, any opportunity to bring another alternative in, even if it doesn't benefit us today, but benefits someone 5 to 10 years down the road, I'm all for that.
So one question, and then I'm going to have a suggestion for the council. The question is, what towns in New Jersey are you already in? Tell us something about your company, not your product, but where are you now? Are you just a startup company and you're looking to get your feet on the ground, or are you already in business?
We were founded in 2011, but we have agreements similar to the one we proposed to you with over 100 municipalities.
In New Jersey?
In New Jersey.
Would you be good enough to give us a list of those?
Sure. That's
Is
not a
that
problem.
We have a list of them.
They gave some
Oh,
company
okay.
information.
Yeah, there is.
Those are actually locations of sort of large places we provide service.
That's not the towns you're in?
We're in those towns, but we're in, like I said, we're in over 100 towns in New Jersey.
Okay, so that's just a small selection.
Jewel, I'm under the impression that our school system is either all currently wired or is doing fiber optics for all the schools.
Yes.
So they're doing, what they're doing would preclude the need for them at this service
Correct, at the present time.
at the present time. I mean, but they're already doing that, and we're gonna be part of that, right? Are we not gonna be part of the fiber optic?
Okay.
Hold on a second, Nick. The fiber optic situation with the schools?
Yes, in fact, we're currently working with the schools to address some of the communications issues that we're having with the fire and police departments.
So,
We're just
the mayor,
connected.
here's
Right.
the
We're
school
piggybacking
district
on
and the
their
government
their
here
fiber.
are creating their own private network, which is within town.
Right.
Now, this private network now has to be connected to the big internet. Connecting to the big internet, it goes through another fiber provider, and usually what we have over here is a opening from Verizon that provide access to internet. There will be another provider that connects to the internet as a backbone. The two things are in parallel and are not competitive one with the other. One is a local network
Right.
to connect the, and the other one now is carrying it over outside the town to the big internet.
Okay, so here's what I would suggest to the council.
I have a question. I'm still not clear on something.
Well-
So you were just describing that the outside provider goes to the whatever the big internet.
Exactly.
Are they the same thing, or are you your own internet provider?
We are not a owner internet provider, but what we would do is, the
Connect.
gentleman mentioned, is if you set up your own, if you're going to essentially create your own internal LAN, WAN here in Tenafly to connect your buildings, that's great, but that's all it's going to connect is the buildings.
Yeah.
You're going to probably want a couple of different things. You're going to want to connect to the internet, as you said, and you're going to have to contract either with someone like us or Verizon or LightPath Cablevision or somebody so that you'll have internet access on your network. Second, you're probably going to want some sort of a storage service, right? Because you're going to want to store records, either now or in the future. And you're going to contract with someone else to do that. And you're going to have to take the traffic that's going around on your internal network and take it somewhere, probably to a data center not in Tenafly. And you're going to have to contract with someone like that. Third, as people start using, Google Docs and other cloud services, sometimes they use them over the internet, but in many instances you want private connections to these cloud services, which are available in data centers, again, not in the Tenafly area, and you're probably eventually going to connect with some service provider to do that. It may be the same service provider, it may be a different service provider. But all of these things, you're going to have to connect your internal network here in Tenafly to a larger communications
storage
backbone
device
to get those services.
for the average business in Tenafly, including the schools. It is very unlikely that they will have a direct pipe
No, I understand.
with a very large server storage. It's very expensive. So more than likely, they're going to go through a backhaul provider,
Like
backbone provider, to the storage device outside the.
Have any of the municipalities that you've contracted with have a arrangement with you where, in return for allowing you to come into our town, you provide whatever services we need that you can provide for the municipality or the school system for free?
No.
Would you be willing to consider that?
We would certainly be willing to consider to make an offer to you, but the problem with that offer is that we get it frequently, and our view is that we have the right to be on the utility poles to provide service, and if we give it to one municipality, then we have to give similar deals to everyone else.
We won't tell anybody else.
Yeah, that's right. It's going to be only public knowledge.
Well, but on the other hand, you're coming here asking.
I am coming here asking,
So,
it's true.
okay, what I'm going to suggest to the council
We
is,
take
One thing, what's up in how come the line ends in Mawa? Is that
They're actually, I think the route we're planning for now is going to go up into a new data center up in Rockland County. We have a different route which is going up into Mawa. The New York Stock Exchange is located in Mawa.
okay.
what I'm going to suggest is, we have, as our borough engineer, Mazer, which is a very, very large engineering firm, one of the largest in the state. I would like to ask our borough engineer for his opinion on this, or just for him to give us whatever information he might have on this industry, because I find Max's comments to be very helpful because he's been involved in the industry. But we have an asset such as Mazer. I think we should bring them in and let them give us whatever sense they have.
And
on
we
this.
should also discuss, in a working session, the actual, what is the strategy that we need to have as a borough if we want to provide services to the entire community. What is the best way to go forward in that type of environment?
Okay. So,
But just to your question before, when you talked about precluding other services, like I said, we're a very small company, we're not a lot of people, but I would argue that allowing someone like us in the poll doesn't preclude others from coming in, simply for the fact that in many instances it may not be worthwhile for another provider to go out and lease fiber or build another fiber optic network. By having, right now I think you probably have Verizon, you have Cablevision. Those companies don't do what we do. That is, if you went to Verizon or Cablevision as someone looking to provide competition with them, you can't lease their fiber. They won't let you.
right,
Yeah.
we understand.
We're happy to give it to anybody, including whoever wants to provide commercial services. We're not in competition
We
with those
understand
people.
it very, very well.
Okay.
You're a
Not
backbone
me.
provider that can attach some large businesses. What we need to understand, if those businesses are attached and already gone, would that town be any more as attractive to another provider that will come to provide services to their residents when they cannot get those businesses? Or we can work with you to make sure that we have a good understanding of what can be done in town.
Absolutely, it's like, now that Cablevision is here,
Yeah.
legally, any other cable company could come in here, but they're not gonna come in here because of
Yeah.
the nuances of the
So
business.
Exactly.
So, what we're going to do is take this under advisement,
Okay.
I'm going to ask our engineering company to give us whatever information they might be able to provide, and possibly a recommendation to go forward with it, or to ask more questions. And you should hear from us. It's now the end of October. Before the end of the year, you'll hear from us.
Okay, and I owe you a list of the towns
We
where we
may
have
ask
similar
you-
agreements. I
We
will
may
send-
ask you to come back and answer some questions. I would assume that you've left your business card or contact, you have contact information, Lisette? Okay, thank you.
I'll leave my card with you.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our pleasure. We appreciate your time. Next item is replacement of turf on municipal field in 2017 budget. And this was a request from the Recreation Board. So, Jewel, you want to bring everybody up to date on where this is and your recommendation?
Well, my recommendation is that we not put the full amount in the 2017 capital. But the field has been in place for almost a decade. We have been advised by the company that maintains the field for us that we are nearing the completion of its useful life. We have had, not a lot, but we have had occasional instances either of vandalism or just natural wear and tear, where we've had to have the company come in and make some repairs for us. But so far, they've all been instances where we're able to make reasonable repairs and to maintain the field in good use. Susan and I will be looking at the capital very closely. One of the reasons is, as you recall, in tripling the amount that we normally budgeted for road service this year, we didn't drastically increase the level of our capital budget. So what we did was we deferred a lot of projects that we know are still going to be facing us for 2017. I think one of the possibilities is that we look at this matter very closely and possibly look at replacement in maybe 2 years. And so maybe making a partial appropriation for 2017 so that we can begin
Reserve.
to have a reserve for this. We would not be obligated to expend the money in the same year that it's appropriated. So
Julie,
we
I
do
have a
have the
question.
ability to build it up.
Are you saying that the field will then be repaired over a 2-year
No,
period?
It would be
Replaced
replaced.
over a 2, it can be done like
Yeah,
partially?
we've got 10, I'm sorry?
It does, how do you?
Oh, no, we're talking
No.
about
Keeping the money there, you mean?
keeping the money
Oh.
there.
Just
okay.
setting
Setting it up
aside
for it.
half the
Right,
cost.
okay, all
Max,
right. I'm
please.
wondering
All
how
right,
can
so
you-
We just think in terms of the total picture
Okay.
with regard to our capital, we think we would be hard pressed to put, they're saying roughly $400,000,
Oh, that's
which
a
is a
big
lot.
ticket, yeah, that's a big ticket.
So here's the question I have. If you look at you Google out, you find out that there is a lot of controversy regarding this artificial turf because they are filled with, and I'm going to tell you, they are filled with pieces of
Tire.
tire that have been chopped and stuff.
Tire
There were
bombs.
lots of, yes, there are lots of cases of lymphoma and cancer that were related to this specific artificial turfs. This came out to such a density, this is like first as an incident here, then it's like a story here and there, but it became such a well documented that the EPA has decided that it's going to do an inquiry and find out if those fields are safe or not. They started the inquiry, and the results of this inquiry by the EPA were supposed to be released later on this year. So chances are that later on this year, we're going to find out that those incidents are just, like many other things, stories, or there is a problem with those pieces of carbon that get inhaled by the people on the field, and they create lymphoma, and they create cancer of the lungs or stuff like that. At that time, they will take steps to regulate the use of that. So, would be my opinion that before we do any type of action, we wait for the EPA to make the decision, which is supposed to be by the end of the year, but probably it's going to be 2-3 months after. We know how EPA works, to know if really there is because there are alternatives to those fields that do not have that same type of coverage, and they do not have those rubber whatever that can create the problems, and we can use all those alternative it is.
But the problem with that concept, Max, is regardless of whether the type of field we have now is what we want to replace it with or not, we
Yeah.
have to replace the field.
Yeah.
We're running out of time, so it would seem to me that to set aside half of this cost now, there's no
doesn't lock us into-
we're not locking into any type of particular material.
Yeah,
Or
that's,
But
provider.
basically, within 2 years, we have to do something with the field, and we need the
Yeah.
money to do it. So, Dan, you had your hand up.
This is more of I guess, Bill and Jewel question. And it's because I saw Mr. Coyle in the corner of my eye. Are you allowed to take this is just for budgeting purposes, earmarked loan out of the open space trust fund for this?
Well, when you say loan, we can't borrow, and I have a note right here, so
Not from the
we're
open
on the
space.
same page.
Not from the open
There
space.
there are really two issues. Number one, we don't take a loan from open space to lend to ourselves. We expend. So I was actually going to raise the fact that that's another consideration. The council also has to decide whether or not it wants to take on an additional $400,000 in debt,
Right.
or to utilize the open space
Yeah, we
trust
can't use the
fund.
open space for.
Well, excuse me, but you can use it. It's eligible. It's a council decision
Right,
as
and
to
it's not
whether
a
or not
decision
you
we're going to make
right.
tonight.
Correct.
So, you
But-
just hold off on your on your
But with regard to the earlier discussion, no, we have to use it. We don't borrow from ourselves.
The long and the short of it is, this field has been, I hate to say it, in my experience, the best money we have ever spent. We took a field that was hardly playable and turned it into a field that can be used 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, regardless of the weather. Okay, it's an asset. 10 years ago, when we were talking about using this field, we had concerns about the lights, and we had the same concerns about the material that went into it and the safety of that material. To the best of my knowledge, there has been no definitive study that says this material is unsafe. Now, I'm not suggesting we ignore any future studies, but we have to prepare to replace this field one way or the other within 2 years. Because otherwise, our kids aren't going to have a field to play on.
I have a couple of
Well,
questions.
okay, then Mark.
You said we would have to take the money and spend it out of the
Well-
open space fund if we wanted to take that.
If we're going to use it,
Would
it's not a loan, it's
Would
an
we have to
expenditure.
use, could we do this, like we take part of them? I'm just
Yes,
saying,
yeah.
part of the money could come from there, part of it could be from our.
Let's say we're going to spend
Correct.
$400,000
We
on the
do
field.
half
We
and
could
half,
take
or-
200 out of capital for this
Okay, so
year
there's
into
no-
a reserve.
there is
There's just no
nothing
payback,
stop-
right.
That's fine, but there's no
We're not going
stopping
to
us.
discuss tonight
No, of course
whether we
not.
use
No, I'm
open
just trying
space
to,
funds for
I'm
this
just trying
field.
to clarify. And my
That's an
other
argument for
question,
another day.
and my other question is, since this is a 2-year plan,
You'll get a chance to
if
speak.
we
in
get that
public comment.
EPA report in between, we will have an option to look, we're not tied into this particular field.
Right, we're not locking
We're
into
just saying
any
a
particular
field.
product
I
or
think, look,
provider.
the action we need to take tonight is to respond to the request from the Recreation Board as to what we're going to do. And I think Mark, do you want to make a
Yeah,
comment
a
before I
couple of
suggest what
comments.
we?
So this is a 2-year budgeting project process. I think we should move forward with putting half of it in the budget this year. And then by that time, we'll know what the safety issues are, because
And we
there's
can
plenty
look
of
at some
time.
other
Well,
That could
material.
be-
I'm not sure we will know, unfortunately.
Well,
We've
If
been
we
to-
know, let's
we've been
put it that
talking
way. If
about-
we know.
We've been
If we
hearing
know.
about studies
Right,
for
right.
at least 5 or 6 years.
But
There's
between-
advocates,
Let's see
between-
what happens.
there's
Peter,
strong advocates against this
between-
material, and there's advocates in favor of it.
Between now and the time we have the money ready, we'll have more information about safety and material issues. But I think very strongly, just to get on the open space topic for a second, because it is an argument for another day, but we use the open space money at Geisinger Field for a very specific purpose, which was to get more field space. That's not what this is for. So I would advocate that we have to figure out where to get that money from, other than the open space
Well,
trust fund.
okay, but keep in mind, and I'm not talking about open space money now, I'm talking about field space.
I
If we
understand
were,
that. Right.
there's really two options for this field. One is to go back to a natural field,
That's correct.
or to do some sort of artificial field. If you go back to a natural field, you're gonna end up in the same situation we were 10 years ago, and that is a field that can't be used
I used to get
Correct.
one half of the time
Yeah.
we use this. So then you're gonna put yourself in a position where, you know, you've got field shortages again. So I'm not necessarily saying we're locked into this material,
Yeah,
but, you know, if this
Yeah.
material
Yeah.
proves to be unsafe,
we go
then we have to
somewhere
look
else.
for
Yeah, of
alternatives.
course.
I just think
Obviously.
we need to
I think
budget for it.
we are basically
see where we
agreeing
can.
on the concept of budgeting for
Right.
it, and I don't
Yeah.
think anybody's disagreeing.
No, with
that.
the concept of budget,
So
as long as we don't.
The answer we're going to give the rec board is that we're going to set aside 50% of the cost of this field for next year, but we're not locking ourselves into
We
any
don't commit.
particular
Correct.
company or material, because
Right.
we have a concern for this, for the,
Yeah.
you know,
December 16 is supposed to be, but they're not going to release it before.
We'll never be on time.
They're
Yeah.
never.
you're on the Environmental Commission?
I am?
Are you, no?
I am.
Okay.
Okay,
So, hold on. Introduce
Fine.
yourself, because not everybody may know who you are.
Jim Coyle, 14 Kenwood Road.
Okay, and I know where you're coming from, but go ahead. 2
Okay,
minutes.
You touched on an item I'll be talking on later appropriately, but Mr. Bosch raised the issue of health concerns,
Yeah.
lymphoma, cancer
Yeah.
with the tire crumb material.
Yeah.
I didn't hear anybody say, well, what, the Environmental Commission has discussed this, has done research on it. I've read some of the current research that I've talked about today. And a more direct concern is like lead ingesting for
Yeah.
small kids, which is a very serious concern. I didn't hear anybody say, well, why don't we refer this commission for research and study and a recommendation from the Environmental Commission?
Well, I
That's
think-
my comment for now.
You know, and once again,
Thank you.
we have to be
Acknowledgement.
more proactive in leaning on our various commissions and committees where there's an area of expertise or knowledge at least for opinions. That's one of the reasons we have these committees and commissions, so your point is well taken.
Yeah, I have some current research I'll forward it
Yeah, I
to
read-
Julie and Lizette. I'll ask them.
I appreciate
And then to forward it to the rest of the council.
Yeah, I
Thank
appreciate
you.
because I read last night all those about
I
14
mean, with
different
all due
studies.
respect, Jim, we've heard your comments on this for as long as we've had this field, and I appreciate that. You know, I also am aware of the benefits of the field. I'm certainly not going to suggest. we
I've never made
jeopardize-
a comment on the municipal field.
Well, it's really the same thing. You know,
Okay.
but
We'll discuss it later on,
We're
like
not
you said.
we're not going to jeopardize anybody's safety, especially our kids' health. But on the other hand, we want to make sure that our decision is the right one. So we'll take into account any information you want to
Well,
provide us.
since you brought it up, I just wanted to make that
You and the
suggestion.
commission.
Yeah.
Okay, next on the agenda is outsourcing of the recreation brochure. Mark, you're the liaison with the rec board?
Right, but I missed unfortunately the last meeting that this was
Okay, well,
discussed, but.
Jewel, do you want to describe it? Because otherwise I would.
Yeah, I spoke to both the former director and the current assistant director about this item, because we've actually looked at the issue of utilizing or inviting advertising into our borough publications. In other instances, is not the first time that it's something of this nature has been suggested. And each time that we've looked at it, we've ultimately rejected it. I don't have a lot of examples tonight, but in the past, and they're very easy to find, we can find examples of other publications done by communities.
Well, they gave us,
They gave us
One or two, huh?
one or, they actually gave us one from Leonia.
Yeah.
And I mean, essentially, what we found is it's just not a look that we're interested in necessarily incorporating in our publications. Our publications are very modest. We keep the cost down. It's good quality, and we like the fact that the content is all borough content. It's not distracting with other larger competing advertisements. We know from experience, especially in the sports area, where you do fundraising and boosting and advertising, one of the major discussions that invariably occurs is disagreements on the type of advertising to be accepted. I mean, if you look at this example from another community, I can see 3 or 4 things right off the bat that particular segments might object to. So that is another hurdle in and of itself. So from an aesthetic perspective, from an issue of who advertises and who makes that decision, and who goes out and solicits the businesses and purchases this advertising. It's not something that we've ever agreed to do based on past considerations.
I'd like to say the following. First of all, I happen to be very proud of the publications that we're putting out now. The newsletter, the Borough Newsletter, and the Recreation Bulletin. I think it looks terrific. You know, you can only get so much milk from a cow. An outside company will go to the businesses in town to solicit advertising for this. These are the same businesses that support the Little League, Tenafly Youth Basketball, junior soccer, traveling soccer, all of the high school activities,
The volunteer
project graduation,
services.
TVAC, the fire department. Now, none of these businesses, for the most part, are in a position that they're going to expand their advertising budgets. So what happens if they spend money on this? It's going to be taken away from all of our other groups, all of which I think are worthwhile. So I'm against it for 2 reasons. One is aesthetically, I don't think the Recreation Bulletin would be better looking than it is now. And second of all, you know, it's so difficult to solicit all of these small. We don't have a lot of big businesses in town, and they hate to say no. And when you get a professional company coming in and trying to solicit for a booklet, they're high pressure people. They're professional salespeople, and I think it's going to hurt all of the other activities. Mark, you had your hand up, and then Shama, and then next.
Do we have a copy of what the Leonia brochure looks like?
Yes,
I think I've
we
seen
do.
it in the
It's
past,
there.
but I don't.
And that's one of the things I want to, no, those are 2 of the pages
It's
from
in
it, but the
pages.
document is
Right.
there.
Oh, it is, in the request
Right.
there?
The thing you have to keep in mind,
Oh, there it is.
right,
Yeah.
while our publication is usually 12 pages, the Leonia publication is 33 pages, which is one of the reasons that it's probably cost prohibitive for them and why they do accept advertising.
business cards.
So right off the bat, their publication
Yes,
is
business card.
3 times the length of ours.
My
Well,
question
let me-
was,
I-
oh, sorry, you're not
I-
done?
I-
Okay, sorry,
second.
sorry.
My only comment is we just had a conversation about the fields where we were talking about the issue of, you know, our different boards and commissions have opinions and points of view. And if I'm on the rec board, I'm the rec board liaison, so I have to take their position. You know, if they think this is something they'd like to try, why not?
I'm not sure you have to take
Well,
their
but I'm
position. They're an
advocating for them.
advisory-
I don't disagree with their decision. I'm advocating
There's
for
1 or
them.
2 people on that board that feel very strongly about bringing in alternative revenue so they have more money to spend. Okay,
Fair
I
enough.
can appreciate. This isn't money that's going to save taxpayers dollars. This is
That was
money
my
that will
question, mates. What is this $10,000 that they're saying the borough will save?
Well,
That's-
Well, that's what
the
we
First
cost
pay
of
off,
doing it
yeah.
now.
to print this out.
Oh, okay, I was wondering
That's what
where.
we pay now for
okay.
it.
But I would have to even look at that statement a little closer, because we definitely do not pay $10,000 per publication, and we
Is it for
only
the
do,
entire year?
and we only do a couple a year. It's not like we do it monthly or weekly or
yeah.
anything of that
Want us to support
nature.
it? I'll support
Oh, I
it.
support, I mean, To me, my view is I'd like to see what the brochure would look like.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if they want to try it out, one
and
shot.
what are we really saving? And if they want to give
So-
it a shot,
My
And when
opinion
you say
too.
try,
Let me explain what my opinion would be too.
who's
If the rec- if
who's
the-
selling this advertising?
They are.
If the rec board- if the rec board
The
is-
company that does the
Right.
booklet will sell the advertising.
Correct, but do you know the company that's selling the booklet?
Okay, let
Okay.
us say, let us say something.
They'll do their homework for
Yeah,
sure. I mean, they're not just going to give it
Well,
to you.
we don't have to worry about them
That's
selling
fair.
advertising.
Right, that's not our
I'm
responsibility.
Well, I don't want you to
Okay.
get involved, Christine, but Christine, for example, knows when you outsource a book like this, you get professional salesmen that come in and sell advertising.
Yeah.
Which is
And-
what we've been approached to buy about in the past.
Yeah, but now it's my turn now. There is no question that there is a positive thing about going and not paying for this. And if the issue is that the touch and feel that we have in the brochure should be preserved, you have to allow tell the board that we would like to keep the touch and feel, and they will understand that, and they will create the same touch and feel. And if they have to have 2 pages in the back just for advertising after the whole idea, I mean, those are things that the board can work with. Precluding that because I don't like this advertising, it's a subjective issue that I don't like it. The fact that the board is looking to do so in a professional manner, I mean, that's their prerogative. We are empowering them to do
So
so.
what do you mean they're looking to do something in a professional manner?
They are going to be going out
They're
to
looking to get alternative revenue.
an alternative, but
Okay.
they will go out to a company that basically makes those brochures. They can very clearly lay out the conditions of how those brochures should be laid out. The fact that if they don't want the advertising to be interlaced with their messages, so it doesn't take away from their messages, and the advertiser should be on 2 separate pages or so. They can lay out the structure of the so an intelligent person can make this brochure to keep the same touch and feel that we have with our
Let me
brochure.
ask you a question.
Yes.
Okay, let's say for argument's sake that we spend $10,000 a year
Yeah.
manufacturing this. Now, obviously, we're a small company and we send it to a printer.
Yeah.
We outsize this, okay, and we're going to get a company to give us a similar look, the same nice brochure with a couple of pages of advertising.
Yes.
How are they going to finance producing this book? They're going to finance it by selling advertising. And if they sell $10,000 worth of advertising and it costs them $5,000 to do the book,
Yeah.
okay, they make $5,000.
Right.
Okay, they're not doing it for free. They're not doing it
Absolutely.
because they're making money.
A percentage of that,
They're
yeah.
taking a percentage of our of
Sure.
the sales to So it's really the only reason we would do this is to save the cost of this. So you have to do cost benefits. Now, like I said, I haven't heard anybody address the fact that if they sell $10,000 worth of advertising, do you really think that the small businesses in this town are increasing their advertising budgets by $10,000? Or do you think they're taking $10,000 away from all of the other activities that solicit in our
This is the
town?
typical
Project
question.
graduation,
Yeah, so I'll answer that because this is the typical question that is always asked. In a finite environment, which is what you say, we have a finite environment, there is no additional room for extra money to be found, and as such, it's to take from Peter to pay Paul. And that's your argument. Now, if you have a professional company that does it for a living, they can go beyond the typical advertising in Tenafly and get to Englewood Hospital that wants to do business with Tenafly. They can go to banks that want to come to, like Chase Manhattan or whatever other banks they want to put. So if they are a professional company, they can expand the pool of advertising beyond the typical Chamber of Commerce that it's managed over here.
But if you look at the sample that we have here, I don't see Englewood Hospital there, and this is Leone, which is right next to Englewood Hospital.
Yeah.
What I see is celebrity salons. Okay, what I see is Churchill Orthopedics. What I see, and you know, as somebody who solicited last year $20,000 for a summer concert series, I know what it means to go to these small businesses and say, "Can you help us out?" Okay, and they have finite budgets, and right now, Tenafly Junior Soccer, the travel soccer, the basketball league, the little league, they all donate to the town because they have money to donate to the town. If the advertising revenue that comes into them is cut back, they have to cut back something also. It's similar to the equation that we had this discussion at this table for many years about charging the churches sewer charges. I was always opposed to it. It finally passed after a number of years. And, you know, the end result is the churches have less money to spend on their programs, which support our community. It doesn't mean they raise more money. So I'm sorry, you know, you folks can decide. I mean, it's your prerogative to vote on this. And Mark, I don't like saying no to the rec board, but I know where the rec board is coming from. You got a couple of people that want to bring in more money so they can spend more money.
But the group on the rec board as a whole moved this forward. It wasn't just two of the people on the rec board, otherwise you wouldn't be here. I understand what your point there, but to me, this is one of those issues. The rec board wants to give this a try. I agree with your concerns about limited and finite resources of advertisers. On the other side of the coin, I take the view that the rec board wants to try this, let them try it. If it turns out to be a disaster for whatever reason, we don't do it in the second year. We go back to where we were, but let them give it a try and see what happens.
Well,
Maybe
right
it'll be a
now we're at
positive
a
result.
disadvantage because we're in between department directors. And typically, because it has happened on other occasions, that when a major decision of this nature was before us, we also made a decision to wait until we had a department head in place so that individual could be part of that decision-making process. Even if you say, okay, let's give it a try, this is not going to happen immediately.
Right, so I'm not questioning the timing of how fast it happens. I don't necessarily think this is an issue that we need to wait for a new rec director. I mean, we have a borough administrator, we have an assistant rec director, we have a rec board. Between the three groups of people, you'll be able to figure out the timing, what's the right time to do this. I don't think we need to sit and wait for a person we don't know yet to move it forward. This isn't a complicated, major topic that the town is committing itself to.
I think it's a major policy decision.
I think it's a brochure, and if we can save $10,000 of money, I'm gonna give it a try.
I'll support that, Mark.
Yeah.
Since you're representing the rec board and you are
Give it a
supporting
try.
it,
Yeah.
I will support you.
Yeah, and if it's a major policy decision, maybe that's how we find out if this policy decision has to be changed or not. We'll find out if it works.
Dan?
Are there any standards on
Oh,
the type
listen.
of advertising?
Well, you
Dan?
have to work up those details with the rec board.
Yeah.
Work through that.
So the rec board or whoever, the schedule and all the activities, who prints that then? They don't go out. The
No.
borough does, right?
The borough prints.
Are they, the printing costs, are they scaled with the rest of our printings?
Yeah.
And how many of those go out? And how often?
3 times a year.
No, those.
3 times a
Three
year.
times a year. Fall, summer.
And 10,000
summer
is the
program,
total
fall
cost.
program, spring programs?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's what
I'm
they
still
say.
curious about that 10,000. Where is that coming from? What cost 10,000?
Is that their line item?
That's a line item.
That's a line item in our budget.
Right.
Yeah.
So you
that's
happen to recall
Oh.
what
Right,
that
that's in the
number is?
budget.
Well, yeah, we talked because we do every household, and that was what we said, it's about $3,200 in
A
addition, yeah.
All
So
right,
just under 10.
Yeah,
we'll support
Okay,
Mark.
but
yeah.
Give it a shot.
so if I
Give it a
need
shot.
an extra $5,000 for the summer concert
I'll put an
series,
ad in, I promise.
but if I need an extra $5,000 because the sponsorships aren't coming in, and don't forget, we also have a welcome committee which is going to need to solicit. You can only hit these people over the head so many
Understood.
times.
Understood.
So make sure that you talk to the welcome committee.
I understand.
To come to the rec board to take some of the money.
That's Paul's problem, not mine.
Okay, let's move on. Administrator's memo.
So I make a backup. The 2017 municipal budget process is upon us. I know already. And the timing was supplied for you. There's a budget schedule, preliminary budget schedule. And it's preliminary because of the fact that, yes, we have a lot of control over Part 1, our internal process, but the statutory process is almost invariably extended, but it has to be done officially each year by a combination of the local finance board and Division of Local Government Services. So chances are 2, possibly 3 weeks will be added to each of those dates, beginning with the January 15th. But in general, we've been having, I think, a very smooth process. Susan and I are already knee-deep in issues. We'll be getting the materials out to the department heads this week, and as always, they'll be asked to return their budget proposals by the first week in December. One of the things that you'll see on this schedule is for the overview of the 2016 budget results and 2017 review. What we do each year for the first committee of the whole meeting, or the committee of the whole meeting in December, is to give you an up-to-date look at how we fared financially in the current budget year, and some of the issues that we feel we'll be having to take a close look at, and some of the things that could affect our budget performance in the coming year. So that would be scheduled for the first committee of the whole meeting. The other item that you have attached to the memo is the revenue report from the Department of Finance. This one goes through August of 2016. We'll have the one for September very shortly. And so if you look in the last column where you have the percentages, it gives you the comparison of our actual performance through August compared to our projected budget. And as you can see, we're doing very well.
That's what was a question. Through August, I didn't know. Okay, so it's 8 months. We are at 54%.
Correct.
So we're going to end up, unless there's the usual rush in the last quarter to spend a lot of money, we're going to be around 80%.
They spend more money in the last quarter.
I know, that's the usual rush. Let's spend money.
We have put in numerous safeguards to prevent escalating spending in the last month.
That's
one of the safeguards.
And
right
people
over there,
can
sitting
put
right
things
over
in the
there.
system, but things do get rejected.
Because I projected this when we are going to be around 82-83% if we continue on the same path.
Well, we should always be so fortunate.
Yeah, exactly. So if that doesn't happen, we know that there is something wrong in the third quarter, in the last quarter.
Okay, thank you.
And then I just want to comment briefly on Registrar. I'm very optimistic. I met with Paula Cozzarelli, who is the Borough Administrator of Little Ferry, and she was very amenable to extending our current agreement, which is working out
Which works out
beautifully.
very well for
I
us.
spoke with Mayor Robusto, he's on board.
Okay.
Can I ask a question about your report, please?
Sure.
It's not here. Last time that we met, basically is when we agreed that we're gonna get the streets repaved and everything else. One of the things that we didn't discuss, and I would like to see if we can have an answer, was that based on the regulations in New Jersey, up to 25% of the asphalt can be recycled. And we know from Mazer that if we get 100% of the new asphalt in the mix, the quality of the surfacing is better. Did we get any answer from the contractor if they're gonna use up to 25% recycled asphalt, or they're gonna use 100% new? That was one important thing to understand the quality of the recycling. The second part is, we're gonna use a specific sealing process after the asphalt is laid out.
That's correct.
In order to and the question was, can we go and find out if the same sealing process can be used for the streets that have been used surface recycling?
Micro.
Well,
Can
that
we find out if that can be used and if it's useful?
We already answered that, and I confirmed that this morning when we had our meeting with Andy, with Andy. The microsurfacing is a sealing process.
Is exactly what that is.
That's already a sealant.
So it's
you don't put a
You don't need it
sealant
on
on
top
top
So
of that sealant.
there is no advantage. Okay, so
Correct.
we just need to find out about the quantity of
Correct.
recycle.
And one other item, I'm sorry, unfortunately, Councilman Barzalato is not with us, but he did want us to know that the emergency operations plan is currently under revision. He is working on it in conjunction with Captain Michael DiMancata, who is the deputy OEM. And they're meeting with the county next week. And he was sorry that he wasn't able to be here tonight, but this item will be scheduled for the November 21st council meeting. And Councilman Barzalato will give a full update on where we are with the process.
We'll either have Rob Chamberlain or Captain DiMancata.
If you'd like.
I would
Okay.
like very much to have that. They're required by,
Since it's on for the November 21st meeting, if you look at Jules, further down for the events, the annual fire poster contest winners are coming on the 21st. And since they're very young kids, would you like to
Yes.
switch and have the public meeting first, since it's only that and adopting the ordinance for 24th Road and then the work session?
what I would suggest is, why don't we start a public meeting at 7 o'clock? Let the kids come, because that normally takes a good half hour. Just do we'll start the public meeting at 7, do the kids, then adjourn and go into the work session at 7:30. Can we do that?
Do we have to go back and
The letter
forth?
already went out.
You get dizzy?
Yeah.
The letter already went out to the kids, said it's at 7:30.
Ah.
And we have a public hearing at 8 o'clock to adopt that ordinance for 24th Road.
Well, then let's start at 7 o'clock and do the with Tony, the OEM thing.
Okay.
All right, this way we're not too
Okay,
late.
so we'll be inviting, well, Tony will be here, and then we'll be inviting Chief Chamberlain and Captain DiMancata, so you'll have the whole team, 7
Okay, now,
o'clock.
the question is, because you brought this up, in my report of the committee, I had something from the committee that was requested. I'll bring it up now, and I'm gonna just say, we already discussed it. The Senior Citizen Committee wanted to know if basically we can make announcements before the cold weather comes, announcements to the fact that the senior center is a warming station, where we're gonna have any type of emergency shelters before the cold
Well,
weather for the people.
The goal is to have this report, which will include all of this.
But how do we generalize,
Well, that-
how do they, people,
That is part of, your questions have been shared with Tony and Captain DiMancata, and we expect answers.
if we're gonna be on the
21st.
21st of November,
Well, it's not a matter of cold weather, it's a matter of when the next emergency is, and let's
Yeah.
hope that between now and November 21st, we don't have an emergency.
so the question here is, Peter, on the 21st, he's gonna say that about that we working on the plan, and we do,
No,
now,
it'll be done.
or will be done. How do we make it public?
Well,
by the- this-
that's an answer we're gonna ask
Okay.
them. That's
All
their
right.
responsibility to provide a method. It's a very good question, and it needs to be answered. It'll be answered on the
Okay.
21st.
All right.
Make sure we need to
This way I
reinforce
don't have
that.
to repeat it.
Reinforce it. Before we go to the next part, one of the items on here is the townwide Halloween celebration, and I just wanted to bring you
Where
up
is
to
that?
date.
Where is that?
Where's that?
Well,
name?
on events, down the bottom of the.
At the bottom of the administrator's
After
report.
updates is
I always
events.
give you an update on the.
I did want to mention to you folks, because this is, you're probably familiar with the fact that there is a tradition of kids packing Cotswold the area, including Ennis, Serpentine, Sherwood Road, is inundated by trick-or-treaters. I don't know how it started, but the houses are...
Easier to walk.
Huh?
Probably easier to walk around.
Well, it
there.
is, and it brings kids from all over town, in fact, probably kids from other towns as well. It is to the point where residents who have 500 or 600 pieces of candy run out of candy.
Oh my God.
And this is even on a day where trick-or-treating is from 3 to 6 p.m., because school, it's a Monday, Halloween, school is there till 3, and it gets dark by 6, 7 o'clock, so it's over. I've had a number of residents voice some concern about what goes on there because it's so crowded. So the police are certainly involved. There's going to be parking restrictions which took place last year and are very helpful. But I was going to prepare a list of do's and don'ts and ask the superintendent of schools to share it with the principals and the HSAs, just politeness, not to walk on lawns, for kids not to walk in the middle of the street. If a house, if nobody answers the door, don't ring the bell 6 or 7 times. These are things, because some of the residents are older. Some of the residents report that if they're giving up something nice, kids come back 2 and 3 times. Kids are kids, and also, most important, that parents should not allow their children to trick or treat on their own if they're below a certain age. And I'm not qualified to say what age that is, but the schools know better, and the parents should know better, that the kids need to be supervised. My recommendation also that there's no scary clown costumes to get involved, but I just wanted to let you know that there has been some concern over that. And, Cresskill has a 7:30 curfew. Alpine has a 7:30 curfew. We don't have a curfew. The chief suggested that he didn't support that. It's dark by 7:30. I don't know who's going to go out.
Not the little
where
ones,
I
for
live,
sure.
not too many people trick or treat, so I can't tell you what the
I get
experience is.
thousands of kids.
No, I
We
don't
run
get
out
that.
But not
of...
after
Everybody
dark,
loves
right?
you, that's why.
Yeah, well, whatever. We have...
Nobody comes.
Yeah.
My
You're
street
not wearing your
has a
scary
steep
clown
hill, so
outfit this
nobody
year, right?
comes.
No, I'm putting my clown costume, all the stuff, Donald Trump face.
Okay. Any questions about the resolutions?
Uh,
Okay, so we have, before we go into the big room, 2 other items. We have listed for I'm not sure, for the good of the order should come last.
No, we have correspondence.
Oh, correspondence. We have from the Tenafly Traditional Holiday Committee a request for the creche, which is, in
Is
my
that-
mind, punctuary. We do that
Yeah.
every year.
or
We do it.
We're liable to get a request for a menorah as well, and anybody that wants to do something of that nature. Okay, so under, I'm gonna do old business first. Dan, you wanted to bring up a dog park?
I,
I have 2 more votes for that, by the way.
what do you mean?
I got 2 new puppies.
Nice. So when we got the map of all our park areas, along Dean Drive from Westabelt to Elmish, there's a long strip of green, and just waiting on some details of what we can or cannot do near the tracks, and then start.
Well, we need to find out how much of that is the
Yeah,
railroad
that-
right
that's
away.
CSX
Right,
zones.
right.
what
You
they
know,
own
if
and
if
what-
we have enough space there, a width,
Right, exactly.
in the area where there's not a lot of overgrowth, bushes and
Yeah.
trees are fine, bushes are not so great, then we could maybe consider it. I think it's a great
If you look
spot.
at a Fort Lee Park, which is a smaller park, it's a population smaller than, bigger than our, their width of the park is from there to there, so it's not, you can make it fits over there.
Yeah, well,
It's
I
super-
think
and we have a long piece
yeah.
of land there.
Yeah, that's long.
I think that location is fantastic.
I do too. I think it's by
And
far
we should
the,
move forward and get that done.
It's a
I think
wide
it's the
street
best
for
one.
street
It
Well,
parking.
depends upon what CSX zones and what,
Well,
how.
we'll figure that out,
if
right.
if the space, once again, some time ago, we had the engineer lay out it over here at Roosevelt Common. We can ask the engineer to do the same thing, give us an idea of
Right.
how it would fit. And if that works next year, we can move it along. My past experience is we could probably put together a committee of volunteers that would raise the money to do, all we need is a
Christine is,
little ground cover and a fence.
Yeah.
Got the URL.
So
Christine, it's already,
it would not be a burden on our taxpayers.
Yeah.
The other item is parking on Magnolia.
Yeah.
Max, you brought that up?
Yes, that's right. So we had this issue with parking on Magnolia a few times, and we discussed it. So what I wanted to do is basically understand if it's really a crisis or not. So 2 Sundays ago, when all the cars are parked along Magnolia, I went into the driveway at Magnolia at one of the residents and came out, and it is a problem. What happened is, on Magnolia during those peak times on Sunday, the cars are parked one next to each other on both sides of the road. And since this is a medium-sized road, all the traffic now goes through in the middle of the road. Now, when you come down off the driveway, when you get closer to the road, you have a wall that you cannot see anymore left or right because all the cars are one packed next to the other, and you are absolutely blind coming out of the driveway. You sit in the chair, you have the 5-foot cars. It's really a danger. So I'm personally convinced that we have to do something. I had conversation with a group of people that live over there, and I think that if we allow a 6-foot yellow marking along each one of those driveways, such a way that the cars are not parked all the way in the driveway, allow the driver to come out and pick around the cars, we will solve most of this problem. So I'm asking over here for the council to think about that and to ask the police and DPW we implemented this type of buffer zones in other areas, and it's really important for people that live over there, and it's really a danger for coming out of the driveway during this time where you have like a wall of cars both ways and another one on the other side.
In the last year and a half, we've had the police do a study 3 different times. 3 different times the police have come back and said they do not believe there is a safety issue in this street.
They didn't come out of a driveway.
I did listen to you.
Yeah.
Okay. I have driven down this street at least 3 times every Sunday in an effort to get a sense of what it's all about. And at certain peak times, there are a lot of cars parked on the street. I have not witnessed, I'm not saying it's never happened, because the one gentleman who's spearheading this has shown pictures of cars
illegally
parked where the bumper is in the driveway. But generally speaking, that's not the case. The street is wider than many, okay? And on Sundays, there is absolutely no traffic on that street with the exception, and I'm talking about your block, I'm talking about the block.
No, the one by the church.
From Highwood to Hillside. There is absolutely no traffic except for the cars coming and going from the church. Now, we have professionals that have looked at this 3 different times, the police. They do not believe that anything is further required. We have never done what Max has suggested, and that put a 6-foot buffer around each driveway. We have, off on Engle Street, for example, lengthened the yellow lines at street intersections, which is a little bit different than driveway intersections. Now, for some reason or other, this gentleman who lives here has decided that he doesn't want cars parked in the front of his house on Sundays. I can understand that. I live between the Greek church and the JCC, and there are events there where cars are parked on our street. It is what it is. We got a letter, there was a letter sent from one of the residents who lives directly across the street from the church to this gentleman saying that they were very upset because they live right across from the church and they don't feel there's a problem on the street. Now, we can ask the police to look at it again, but how many times are we going to ask the police for the same thing?
Let me answer that, because I talked to the gentleman.
I have responses from the chief. With regard to putting yellow lines by the driveway, the chief has indicated that there's no legal basis for doing that. As you know, we have to follow state statutes. The state designates footages, for various traffic devices, for stop signs, for crosswalks, fire hydrants, et cetera, they can only enforce a car that is physically blocking a driveway. There is no standard for how far a car has to be from the edge of a driveway. However, this was on the 21st. What the chief gave me this evening, he stopped by my office and dropped this off, and this is from the gentleman who's been basically leading this effort, Mr. Bellinson. He has now indicated that the situation, in his opinion, has taken care of itself because they were informed that the secondary congregation that was renting the facility and causing what they believe to be the excessive traffic has now relinquished their lease.
They're leaving.
And they're leaving. So from his perspective, the
problem is
situation has been eased considerably, and they're not really asking the police to do anything more at this time.
Right. If that is a fact, then I have zero problems with basically. And as far as the gentleman that did not want to have yellow lines, he was suggested he has. We give him pillows so he can put along the sidewalk to create some sort of a distance from his driveway instead of yellow lines.
We can't do that for one.
I know we can. That's why I'm saying he had another alternative, which was worse than this.
Sounds like it's a
But now
moot
it's
point
so
now.
it's
No,
moot point.
the problem I
Unless
have,
they lease it out again.
the problem I have is this church has had services on Sunday morning longer than any of us have been in existence. They just celebrated their 150th anniversary.
How do you know how old I am, Mayor?
I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt. Okay. Now they
can
rented
walk.
their church to another congregation, so it's not like there's another business there. It's other people come to have a religious service in the afternoon. It was only when this congregation started coming there that there was a problem. Now you could say, well, now it's all day Sunday. It isn't all day Sunday. It was for a couple of hours on a Sunday afternoon. This second group is leaving, and they're
So-
leaving because they felt unwelcome, which is very unfortunate
That's
for our
very
community.
unfortunate.
And believe me, a number of these this gentleman made their feelings known, and it reflects very poorly on
That
Tenafly.
really
I
does.
must tell
That's-
you that.
That's
I
shameful.
was told by one of the residents there, they brought gifts and apologized to every resident on the street.
Oh, my God.
So anyway, hopefully the issue is resolved.
Okay.
Unless anybody has anything else, I'll ask for a motion to close the work session and
So
go into
moved.
the public meeting. All in favor?
Seconded.
Thank you. We'll see you inside. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, and those requirements have been satisfied. Meeting dates for the year confirmed at the annual meeting are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the Municipal Center and published in the record within the first 10 days of the new year. Copies of all revised or additional meeting notices are sent via fax to the Record, Suburbanite, and North Valley Press, and are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the Municipal Center. Salute to the flag. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bash?
Here.
Councilmember Hayter?
Here.
Councilmember Park?
Here.
Councilmember Zinna?
Here.
Mayor Rustin?
Here. Revisions to the agenda?
We have none.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the following sets of minutes: September 27th, the regular meeting; October 6th, the work session; special regular meeting and closed session; and October 13th, the closed session.
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And once again, I want to thank the clerk's office for really keeping on top of these minutes. It's really a pleasure. Next, public comments on anything. I believe this is the only public comment section is open. Anything you want to speak about? Anybody want to speak? No?
It doesn't, old business or new business or
Anything.
anything?
Did you want to speak? But please, no more than 3 minutes.
I'll do my best.
Well, keep time.
Let's try and, if you don't interrupt me,
I'm not gonna interrupt you,
and if
but
you
I'll
do,
put red flag up when it's
pull
time.
back on the on the time. Okay, James Coyle, 14 Kenwood Road, Tenafly, New Jersey. As Mayor Rustin said earlier, I did speak on the Open Space Trust Fund in the past. There are some people here, new people, that haven't heard what I had to say. Councilman Zinna, we had a good detailed talk in a committee, and Peter Rustin has attended our meeting, and Dan Park is there. I was surprised to hear it come up in discussion today. I had no idea it would come up in discussion today, the allocation of the Open Space Trust Fund. The Open Space Trust Fund is on the ballot to be renewed. And my observation, my comment, and I'm speaking for myself, we did discuss this in the Environmental Committee. We didn't really get around to forming a consensus on it yet. We heard about that it's going to be on the ballot in our August meeting, that it's going to be renewed. Okay, so the mayor and council did not think it did not occur to them, and they thought not to get the opinion of the Environmental Commission on whether or not to renew the fund. Okay, my prior comments with respect to the fund, as many may recall, is in fact the legitimacy of the expenditure of $1 million, not for its primary purpose, was in the view of some, including myself, actually questionable because procedural issues for secondary uses of the fund weren't followed. And one of the big issues there is the Environmental Commission voted unanimously against that expenditure. It was supposed to be for an environmental good. It was supposed to be for acquiring new open space. It was removing grass, replacing it with lead turf crumbs, lead tire crumbs, and putting in lights, which some call light pollution. We didn't think it was a good expenditure of the fund. So my comment tonight is that, as I recall one of my bosses telling me, what was in your head when you're going to renew the fund without even asking the Environmental Commission? My feeling is we're going to come around and we're going to say that since we did not do arguably a good job, but a poor job or a bad job with respect to that, that amount of funds, that in 10 years we haven't deployed it for its primary purpose to follow the wonderful tradition of Tenafly in preserving open space, that why are we just building a bigger fund and taxing the people with no stomach, to do the right thing for it, okay? Now, I do have other comments. I'm going to think about them based on what was said tonight about, with respect to what came up in the meeting to deploy the Open Space Trust Fund, the bigger one now, for operations and maintenance purposes, which if I thought that's what I heard. And I have heard several people on this podium say that that was absolutely a no-no. And now I hear it discussed at the meeting that it's absolutely appropriate. So I'm a little bit confused in that regard. So thank you for your time, but I recommend, and I didn't do a campaign on this, like you said, getting a lot of people together, but I do not think it's a good idea to extend the Open Space Trust Fund until we get a consensus of how to deploy it and it gets fixed and we get a better approach to use it for the primary purpose. If we want to have a rec fund to put in artificial turf, then the wording of ballot should be, let's have an artificial turf fund. And if that wins, I have no complaint. But for an open space trust fund, I don't think it's a good idea to continue down the road we have. Should have been corrected. Thank you.
Thank you.
How did I do?
4 minutes.
My apologies.
That's okay. It's a pleasure. Thank you. Anybody that comes up here with a passion is welcome. Any other further comments? Public comments? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember Bash?
Yes.
Councilmember Hayter?
Yes.
Councilmember Park?
Yes.
Councilmember Zinna?
Yes.
Okay, under our agenda, I don't see any old or new business, so I'll move to committee reports. Dan, you have anything?
As Mr. Coyle said, the Environmental Commission met. They were quite upset that the front page of the Suburbanite a few weeks ago was a bunch of balloons being launched at the church up on East Clinton after their whole "let's not do that" spiel. The CAP committee met Monday, and they are hosting at the middle school November 16th, which is a Wednesday night, 7 to 9, a underage drinking panel where they have guests speak, and this is open to parents and students. So they're very informative. They're very good panels.
Mark, you have anything?
Yes, the Chamber of Commerce had the street fair this weekend. Unfortunately, on Saturday, it had to be canceled because of the wind. It was too strong. But the fair went on very successfully on Sunday. Approximately 8,000 people attended, and it went off very well. That's it.
Okay. Well, on that subject, I found the location of the street fair to be pretty good. From a traffic perspective, it didn't really impact traffic at all. From a parking perspective, I think things worked out well. I need to, for my own edification, I need to speak with the owner of Cafe Angelique, but my observation was that Cafe Angelique probably was not harmed by that, but I want to confirm that with him. Unfortunately on Sunday there was still wind. So there was some difficulty with some of the tents and the awnings. I did think that the turnout, considering the weather, was pretty good. And if we can assume for a second that Cafe Angelique was not impacted poorly by it, then we may have found a new home for our street fairs. Certainly they fit in enough of the booths. And Christine, we know how much work you put into it. We thank you very much for that. As far as committee reports, I do have a couple of things I wanted to talk to the council about. One is I attended a meeting at Assemblywoman Valerie Huddle's office a week ago. She held it with a number of mayors to talk about, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Airbnb. And I think, there are a number of towns where this Airbnb has become an issue. For those of you that are not familiar with it, not that I'm an expert on it, these are homes or apartments where the owners lease them out on a very short-term basis, one night or a couple of nights a week, usually through the internet. And quite often, the people that come in and stay are tourists. And I know legislation against this sort of thing started in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and people say, well, that's not a tourist spot. The problem with going on in Elizabeth was, I don't want to call them migrant workers, but workers that came in on a short-term basis to work in, I guess, businesses around there, and they'd stay for a short period of time. So fast forward, there's a house that unfortunately is located right next to the mayor of Fort Lee's home that turned into what's happening in a lot of cases, party homes on weekends.
Yes.
And impacted his quality of life and the other neighbors as well. So Fort Lee is one of a number of towns that have passed ordinances against allowing something like this. And basically what they do is they prohibit short-term leases and define short-term could be less than 3 months or something like that. So it precludes people from doing this. At the same time, I went to this meeting. Of course, my response was, I was unaware of this happening in Tenafly. That's not to say that it's not happening in Tenafly, but something like this you don't really know about unless somebody complains about it. And we've been fortunate enough that nobody has complained about their neighbors or somebody on their street doing this. So to the best of my knowledge, this isn't a problem in Tenafly. At the same time, though, somebody said to me in regards to the home on Hillside, I think it's 56 Hillside, that was denied a subdivision. It's a beautiful old home that needs repairs. They said, why don't we encourage B&Bs, bed and breakfasts? And I said, wow, that's a great idea. And then I said, hold on a second. What's the difference? Almost, I know B&Bs are a little different from Airbnb.
Those are hotels.
But I'm just throwing this out there for your edification because I thought it was kind of interesting. A B&B doesn't sound too bad, but Airbnb sounds like something you wouldn't want in the neighborhood.
Peter, if I can say something now, because you brought it up.
Yeah.
I use Airbnb when I travel to Israel, like to rent a house for a week. I'm using Airbnb when I go now over the holidays to visit my daughter in Paris. And I have also rented it for a house in Nice. I thought it was a great thing, to tell the truth.
Well, what you're doing is great.
I mean,
The problem is when people abuse this sort of thing by having a party house.
So the answer would be to reduce it from not to allow like one night or 2 nights, which is the time of stuff that you have for a party of a night, but not to ban them, I
Well,
think.
I would hope that we don't have this issue at all.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to report on that meeting.
Just as a reference, Cluster is having a problem.
I know that New York City is, but that's a lot of the hotel.
Well, hotels are pushing on
Yeah, the hotels.
That's what's happening in there, but I agree with Max. It's a
But
terrific
the
service.
hotels are kind of bringing this on themselves because if you've ever tried to get a hotel room in New York, the prices are...
Yes, 350. 350 a night.
Okay, this afternoon I was part of a meeting at Senator Weinberg's office, and Senate President Sweeney was there to discuss a plethora of issues. You know, we talked about the Transportation Trust Fund, we talked about the increase in the gas tax, the increase in the elimination of the estate tax, and the reduction in the sales tax. And the concerns that have been voiced in the newspapers and that I have, like what is that going to do to our state budget? Well, he has the same concerns, and so does Senator Weinberg. Because when you take away all the income the state gets from the estate tax and lower the income you're getting from the sales tax, and don't play it off against the gas tax, because the gas tax isn't going into the general fund. It's supposedly going into the Transportation Trust Fund. And all it is taking budget problems that we have now and making them much worse.
Why did they vote for it? If they have a problem, why did they vote for it?
Well, you know, they voted for it because this was the only way Governor Christie would agree for the gas tax. And you know, the Transportation Trust Fund is really in desperate, obviously, we don't have to tell you. So now that the Transportation Trust Fund is going to be financed again, it's up to us to get as many requests in as possible while the money is there. And, you know, they're looking for projects that are ready. So,
shovel-ready
hopefully shovel-ready, exactly. One of the other things that was brought up was the casino situation.
Just before you, what's the time frame for the shovel-ready project to be ready?
I would believe it's usually 6 months.
6 months.
But we already, I mean, in our case, we already have projects that are approved.
Right.
And we're waiting.
So now the money will come in.
Yeah. So we have shovel-ready projects.
One of the things that I found very interesting was the amount of money that's going to become available. And Senator Sweeney made a point of saying that the staffing level down in Trenton is so low, so small, that they could barely handle the amount of money that was coming in today. Now all of a sudden with this gas tax, there's going to be such an influx of money, and how is it going to be dispersed? Because they don't have the manpower to disperse it. And as I voiced my concern, which apparently both Senator Weinberg and Senator Sweeney agreed upon, that this is, you know, you don't want this money to just disappear.
Yeah, our projects were delayed even before.
It's a concern. One of the things that I took away from this meeting that I found very interesting is Senator Sweeney and Senator Weinberg are convinced that the Bergen-Hudson light rail project is not only back on track, pardon the pun, but is going to happen very quickly. And because apparently some of the money has already been specifically allocated for that, which I didn't know, and I find very strange. You know, and they always smile at me because they knew Tenafly was, you know, my concern is, as I voiced it, I said, we have the tunnel under the river, and we have 2 bus terminals that really need to get the highest priority. The bus terminal at 178th Street, which would be very important to residents of Tenafly, since it's so close, was supposed to be completed 4 years ago. The last projection was it would be completed at the end of the fourth quarter of this year, and they're nowhere near that. So Senator Weinberg, obviously, who's a very strong advocate of the terminals, is very, very concerned about that. And there is a very strong concern about the bus terminal down off the Lincoln Tunnel because the New York people are creating havoc. There's been a number of meetings, I attended one, and it's just that they're not cooperating with the New Jersey people at all, and the senators have asked us, there were 4 mayors there, to put some pressure on the New Jersey, the New Jersey appointees to the Port Authority, to pressure them into working very hard to get this done. Their sense of it is that there is a real schism in the Port of Authority between New York and New Jersey representatives, and so far New York, because Governor Cuomo has been very active in this, and Governor Christie has been, out of state. So the end result is the Port Authority has really been taking a New York slant, and New York basically says, we don't really care about these terminals. We don't really care about this tunnel. That's for New Jersey. So that's the sense I've gotten from speaking to 2 people that are really on the front lines, and it's very disheartening. That's all I have for committee reports. John, do you have anything?
Yes, Mayor. The zoning board had no new applications, so the meeting was just resolutions. I attended the senior center board meeting, and that meeting also was kind of limited because Becky was out that day, so there wasn't much that they could discuss. However, there's a lot of interest. They were very interested to know about the progress of the bus. Interestingly, the senior center is getting calls from residents asking, because they read an article in the Suburbanite and assumed the bus is parked in the Borough Hall. So they were asking about the schedule, they want to know when is it starting. So there's active interest in how the bus is progressing.
Okay.
So basically that was the majority of the discussion.
Okay, well, I think Max will mention a little bit about that in your report.
I'll be very glad to. As a matter of fact, Jewel mentioned, we mentioned when Jewel was out that basically the quote is out already. The 27th, I think, is going out, and the bus is going to be here. We will receive the quote. What's the date specifically? Do you remember?
The bid opening is scheduled for November 17th.
November 17th. So that at the meeting, as a matter of fact, this was an issue that was very deeply discussed. Jewel was present for a while. After that was discussed. How are we going to operate the bus? And we told them that already we have in the budget for 2017 the position for a dispatcher, and a discussion was after that taking place if we can get somebody from workforce, which is a training program, to also work with a dispatcher, and then to eventually, if it can be done, replace even the paid dispatcher that we will pay for in the beginning. So that's to the advantage of the town. So we'll have the bus, we'll have a dispatcher, and we're going to have 2 part-time drivers that to be able to operate the bus. Then the issue moved on to the what are the best uses for the bus, and we discussed already about taking the seniors to appointments, to shopping places, to malls and so. But what was very interesting is that Mark Feldman has done an inventory of services available in Tenafly through other organizations, not the senior center. And he specifically went to the JCC and tried to understand what all the services the JCC provides. And to everybody's amazement, they found out that JCC is moving the same way as the YMCA moved from a religious-based organization to a civic-based organization, where they become a civic center for the population, regardless of religion and so on. One of the things that you were mentioning, and we asked them to then put together some sort of a package so people are now in town can know, is that there are very many services that the JCC is providing, some of them free of charge for seniors, some of them for a nominal charge, a suggested even nominal charge. Like they have a program for people with Alzheimer and they put a limit over there, basically 75 years and higher. But and they have a bus that goes and picks up the people and takes them to JCC for some sort of a social programs for people that otherwise would be at home, isolated with no connection. Also, they have a hot meal that they suggest a suggested price of $4 for seniors every day. And you can go over there in the cafeteria, and that's only a suggested price. You don't have to pay if you don't have it. And also what they said is that any senior that comes to them and is asking for membership with a reduced functionality, because they're not going to go too much in gyms and stuff like that, they will not refuse them indifferent of the ability to pay. If they can only pay $300, $400, $500, that's what it is. It's moving from a religious base, or as I said, to a community base. And that was interesting because that, I'm going to have to talk to Councilman Zina, is when we discuss our trying to figure out the town center or whatever we're going to community center, we have to understand also the facilities that we have in town to see what, if any, things that we should do, especially considering the financial commitment that we're trying to minimize with the town. And of course, then they discussed the issue of the emergency, how we're going to let the people now, and we discussed them at length about before the bad weather is coming. And with that one, I had to go because I had a conference call, and that's as much as I know.
All right, well, I would say the following. First of all, I have been a very strong advocate for the JCC for many, many years. I'm a member, in full disclosure, but what they have done up there over the years is nothing new. They have wonderful programs starting from preschool all the way up through the senior programs that Max just mentioned. They have an Alzheimer's program that is just wonderful, and Max is correct. They have a bus that picks up people throughout eastern Bergen County. They bring them in. I've actually taught some classes there, or not recently. They give them a meal. It's some of the things along the lines that we've been talking about doing. And when you say it's not religious-based, I mean, it is a Jewish organization that welcomes everybody. And if you go to the gym or go to the swimming pool, you will see that the changing dynamics of our area are very well represented at the JCC. Everybody is welcome. And they have a fine music school. They do a lot of things there, and it's a tremendous asset. And one of my concerns about the potential community center is that in many aspects the JCC looks at that as competition. So one of the things we have to, I talked about the competition for advertising dollars, and we have to talk about there's so many things we need to do and so limited money. We have to make sure we're not redundant and we don't provide the same services that are already being provided. And I think it's very wise that whether it's Mark Feldman or that committee as a whole, and maybe that committee as a whole should go up and I can introduce them to the people that are running the senior department. Maybe they have a meeting up there. One of their meetings take place up there, and then they can tour the facility and get a sense of what's going on up there. And certainly our senior coordinator, when he or she is hired, one of the first things they should do is go up and familiarize themselves, if they're not already familiarized, because a lot of the people in Bergen County that are involved in senior activities and special needs activities are well aware of the county is well aware of what's going on at the JCC. Under the mayor's report, and mayor's remarks, I haven't remarked very much in recent times, but there are 3 subject matters that I'd like to take up tonight. First of all, I'm sorry Mr. Coyle is gone, because open space is on the ballot this year, And I think it would be a shame if our residents are not familiar with the benefits of the Open Space Fund, and for whatever reason, it's not approved. However, if that would be the case, I think the 7 of us have to look in the mirror and take a little responsibility for that, because we formed a committee 3 or 4 years ago to discuss our definition of the Open Space Trust Fund and how the money could be used. And that committee, to the best of my knowledge, either never met or at least never came back to the governing body with a report or a recommendation. So people are left with this idea that we don't have any definition of, or you know, that's despite the fact that the interpretive statement pretty much says a lot. The Open Space Fund, Trust Fund is for open space acquisition, for recreation, and for historical properties. And we use the term recreation as a reason to go ahead and help finance Geisinger Field. And one of the reasons we put recreation in when we did this 10 or 11 years ago was we felt that by allowing this fund to be used for recreational purposes would be a good selling point. And I think it was a good selling point. And I think it may be a good selling point because people are now getting the benefit of Geisinger Field, and a lot of people are doing that, and the track. And it should be pointed out to them that without open space funds, that Geisinger Field might not have been done 2 years ago. They might still be trying to accumulate enough money to do it. So I hope that the residents of our town are wise enough to approve the open space initiative on the ballot this year. I wanted to point out to members of the council, those that might not know it, that in the last 2 days we've had 2 serious accidents on East Clinton Avenue. On Sunday, a biker was seriously hurt, and I don't have the details. I would assume he was hit by a car, but that's an assumption I'm not sure of. And unfortunately, early this morning, a jogger was killed on East Clinton Avenue, actually right by my house on the intersection of Woodland Street. It was about 5:45 in the morning. He was a Tenafly resident, and he was hit by a car. From what I'm told, he was wearing dark clothing, but I don't know that to be a fact. The only witness to the accident was the driver of the car, who stopped and tried to provide aid. And the police and TVAC were there very quickly, but unfortunately he succumbed to his injuries. I'm going to be speaking to Police Chief Chamberlain, and I'm going to ask him for his recommendation, but I'd like to see our police department start to pay attention to joggers, especially joggers in the evening that are not wearing proper clothes. A lot of people jog without reflective gear or without, and can't be seen. I know now that I have my 2 new puppies, I'm walking on my street late at night, and I'm absolutely scared because people don't, I walk facing the traffic, and if I see a car coming, I pull my dogs and myself onto the grass. And I can do that because I'm not running and I don't have headphones on. But people that jog on our street need to get a sense of what's safe. And unfortunately, we paid the price today. The same thing goes for bikers, but bikers, as a rule, usually are, in proper gear. And the biking accident happened in the middle of the afternoon when there was not a visibility issue. Last but not least, for those of you that are unaware of it, and Celebrity Kids, which I think is one of the best stores in Tenafly, is closing. The signs went up yesterday. And it's funny because Sunday when I walked from Borough Hall to the street fair, I walked past Celebrity Kids, and I said to myself, how fortunate we are to have a store of this nature in Tenafly. And of course the next day the signs go up. It's unfortunate. I'm told that the reason behind it is a potential rent increase.
That's always like
it is, and this will be the 3rd retail outlet in the last few months that we lost the bookstore, and we lost the pet store, and it doesn't bode well. I don't believe we're doing anything wrong in Tenafly, but the one thing that I talked about at our reorg meeting, my goals for this year that I have not done, was to create a committee just to brainstorm about downtown. And if you recall, my idea was not to necessarily involve business owners of this town, but to try and find people that are business owners, big-time people, real estate people that go out beyond our borders, to try and bring in some fresh ideas from the outside, people that are familiar with what's going on in our region rather than just our town, just to brainstorm about what's going on in our downtown. I will tell you that over the last year, I have met with at least a half a dozen developers who have shown some interest in properties in Tenafly, who have shown interest in bringing mixed use of similar nature, maybe not same size, to what's going on in Englewood, which I applaud. I think what they're doing in Englewood, bringing in these big, is great, but we have, we're smaller in many aspects and we can't do the same. And of course, the number one consideration has to be parking. If we're going to build something in Tenafly, we have to provide for parking. But we have to bring more people into the downtown so that the businesses have a ready market. We all know why businesses like the bookstore close, because the residents of Tenafly, among others, don't buy books at the local bookstore. They buy them at Barnes & Noble or on the internet. Well, the internet is beating every retail business to death.
Yeah.
So we end up with restaurants and nail salons. Most people applaud restaurants and aren't too happy about nail salons. But I believe there is still room in a town like Tenafly for bakeries and for butcher shops and for certain businesses. And we're going to have to figure out how to attract those. I know I can't ask the president of the Chamber of Commerce to work any harder than she's working, but work harder. But this is something that should concern all of us, because I'm sure people say to you, we have a lousy downtown. I don't agree. I don't think we have a lousy downtown, but it's certainly not getting any better. And something we have to acknowledge and to consider. I think that's about it for the mayor's comments tonight. We do have a closed session, so if you don't mind.
Sure. Resolved in compliance with NJSA 10:4-12, the mayor and council of the Borough of Tenafly will go into closed executive session, discuss the following matters. The first is discussion of collective bargaining matter. It's going to be an update on contract negotiations. Second is a litigation matter to discuss Pirelli versus Board of Tenafly, Borough of Tenafly, and the last are issues relating to the potential acquisition of property. Minutes will be taken of the meeting and released to the public at the time these matters are resolved. After this closed session, Mayor and Council reconvene in the Richard D. Wilson Committee Room to adjourn this public meeting.
All good news.
All good news.
Motion to go into close?
So moved.
All in favor? See you inside.